This is the Nook Podcast. My name is Stephen Murphy. And as we get into this episode and for the subsequent 2 weeks, I want to be very sensitive. We are going to be covering some very deep topics, and I don't want anyone to be caught off guard. First and foremost, if you've got small kids that may be around while you're listening, it may be best to wait until they are not around. Secondly, and just as important, I want to give a warning to anyone who might be dealing with any kind of PTSD. There will be topics as well as just sounds that may come off as triggering. And I don't know what other word to use. And something like that is never my intent. It is simply to tell the best story, to immerse my listeners into a world that we hear about but rarely get into the real minutia about what some people are dealing with. My intention is not to sensationalize anything that you will hear in the next 3 weeks, but bring to light what so many are dealing with. And while I may sound cryptic, I'm just trying not to give away too much as we get into this very multi-layered story. So, let me just thank you in advance right now for listening, for your sensitivity, and for an open heart to hear this amazing story.
I've been pushing away everybody I love. I don't know what to do. Need a sign from above. I just want to be somebody who knows how to behave, but I'm not even close. Won't you save me? Won't you save me?
As I said, for the next 3 weeks, we are going to be changing format from the normal flow of what the episodes here at the Nook sound like. I have got the amazing honor of introducing you to Travis. He is a husband, a father, and a United States Marine. If you were to walk by Travis in a store or restaurant, you would probably assume that he is just a guy who lives in the area, a guy who gets up in the morning and goes to work to provide for his family. Just another face in a sea of faces. And for the most part, you would be right. But if you take a closer look, you'd notice that he doesn't walk very fast. His steps might look a bit labored. Now, you're starting to just scratch the surface into a much deeper story.
I knew at an early age that I wanted to be a Marine, just because of the Hamburger Hill movie. I love that movie, so that's basically the reason I wanted to be a Marine. And when I moved out here, I became really good friends with a whole bunch of Marines. One was like a mentor to me, and he's the one that got me enlisted. So I knew at an early age that I wanted to be a Marine. I didn't want to. There was nothing else that I wanted to do. So
was that like right out of high school you went into that?
No. So right out of high school, I was like, all right, I'm going to get my partying out of the way. And then not realizing that, hey, I'm going to travel the world and do all kinds of crazy stuff. But so I took a year off, and then, I was like, all right, I'm not doing anything. This is stupid. It's time to go. So I talked to my recruiter, and he goes, all right, when do you want to leave? I'm like, when's the next available spot? And he goes, in about 2 weeks. I'm
Wow.
like, all right, what do I got to do? And he goes, lose 50 pounds.
In 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I did.
Okay, that's
Wasn't healthy.
yeah.
Wasn't healthy at all.
Wow.
So, I lost a total after boot camp, I lost 100 pounds.
What year was that you went into the Marines?
I joined September 16th, 2002.
Wow. So you are right on the end of all that went down with 9/11. What did that factor into your decision? What part did that play in things?
So when that happened, it was more relevant to me. Like, hey, this is what you need to go. That's basically what it was. Like, all right, this sums it up for you. You're going.
Okay.
It's not a question. It's just a matter of time when you're going to go.
Gotcha.
So
once you got in, was it at all a surprise for you? Was there anything about it that was unexpected, or was it just like, yep, this is what I thought and I'm all in?
See, everybody has different experiences through like boot camp and stuff like that. I personally enjoyed it. It was physical. You started to learn discipline and just the basics of everything. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed running, being able to do 3 miles in under 20 minutes and doing 20 pull-ups and 100 sit-ups. That stuff was fun for me, and I enjoyed every minute of that. I made a lot of good friends in that period. One was my best friend who we went in together. And he's no longer around, but he's with me.
Gotcha. So once you got through boot camp, what did that next phase of things look like? I mean, was combat just going to be automatic at that point, or were there still some things floating?
So you still have to go through some training. So we go through SOI, which is basically like a school of infantry. And basically that's just teaching you a little bit more about rifles, and, all the basic stuff that you need to learn. But from there, I went to Okinawa, Japan.
Wow.
And then from Okinawa, I went to Australia, Guam. I went all over the place.
How long were you in each of those places?
So South Korea, I was there for a month, like 33 days for training exercise. Guam, I was there for about 28 days. And this is all just for training. Like, we're training them. We're basically, it's like a war game.
Wow.
Where we're fighting them and teaching them how to be better. And then Australia, I was there for 36 days. Philippines, I was there for 2 months. So basically the first year I was just traveling.
Just bouncing from place to place.
Yeah.
Is that something that you kind of adapted to, or was that weird for you?
No, for me, it was an adventure. I got to go see different areas. I got to see, like in Okinawa, you got to go see the World War II, the tunnels that they have. They still have them open. Majority of them are closed, but you got to see some. You get to go see history.
Yeah.
So for me, that part was great because I love learning about history and how we can learn from that.
Mm-hmm.
So that part was fun for me.
Okay, so then was it just after that? I mean, at what point did combat come into play where that was just like, well, this is going to be the next phase?
So when I got back to Okinawa, I was scheduled to come home on leave, And they were like, hey, you're going to war. And I'm like, all right, whatever. However, a guy said, no, I'll take his place so he can go home on leave. He's been gone for a year. I just got here, so I'm good. So I came home for about 30 days, and then I went back for about, I want to say another 3 months, and then I got shipped to Camp Pendleton, California, and that's where I went to go to Fallujah, Iraq.
Tanks rumble in. The Americans were in this neighborhood the day before, but maybe the insurgents crept back overnight. The Marines have been told to comb the mosque for weapons, and as they do, the firing starts. It turns into a firefight. The armored vehicle arrives with more ammunition because the houses around the mosque are full of fighters.
I had the mindset of when I enlisted, I'm going to war. So, for me, I was already prepared to die. I already came to terms to that. So it was more of like, when is it going to happen and not if. So, that was my mindset of going in, that was the reality.
Do you think that that's the norm for a Marine going into combat, that you're already mentally, or at least somewhat mentally prepared to give up your life?
Yeah. I think that's like when we sign up, we're basically giving the government a check for our lives. So, we're going in there willingly to go fight.
Right.
And we're not going to just back down. We're going to fight until the end.
So is there any way, without diving too deep into, a day-to-day or anything like that, but once you're actually out there you're at war, is there any way for you to give even just kind of a 30,000 foot view of what that looks like to somebody like myself who's never, I've seen the movies just like everybody else, but is there a way for you to put into words what it is like to be there with all of those things happening in real time?
Yeah, for me, it was, the first night I got there, we were having mortars come in left and right. And so I was like, all right, this is how it's going to be. So first off, you're scared. If you're not scared, you're not normal. There's no way around it. There's got to be some sense of being able to harness that scaredness into performance. And for me, it was more like, all right, I got my first dose, let's go. Then it starts becoming second nature of like all your training's kicking in. What do you got to do? You don't have to think about it. You're just reacting.
Is that the way it felt for you? Where it was just like almost you weren't really thinking, it was just happening because that's all you had been drilled to do?
Yeah. So wow. For me, it was definitely just like a second nature.
Amazing. Do you feel like that fear part of it was a constant, or do you just kind of learn to put that at bay when you get into that mode of just, I'm doing what I was trained to do?
For me, it was, I buried it, and I literally was just like, all right, time to work.
All totaled, Travis spent 5 years in active service with the Marines, with only a fraction of that in combat. And I don't say that to minimize that time, because what he had to endure in the warfare was certainly more than most of us could even imagine. Surviving through gunfire, explosions, and countless injuries might actually be the predictable part of things, whereas dealing with the death of your best friend and then so many others takes the mental and emotional components to an even darker place.
That whole time, it really felt like you were going through years and not months. We had so many deaths. Every death, you couldn't really let that set in until later in life. You literally have to, you basically have an 8-hour pause. So 8 hours, you grieve, do what you got to do, and then you go back out.
Is that's something you just have to contend with as well?
Yeah. The first one's the hardest because you don't have anything to compare it to. So, the first one for me was my best friend. So it was the hardest for me. I just didn't, he's the one that brought me to Christ. And at the same time, his death was in part the struggle that I had throughout my Marine career and still today,
Yeah.
So
I was going to say that's like a double whammy, but I hate to even think that there's a category for what that must have been like for you to walk through, especially that it was your best friend, especially that it was the first death that you had to contend with over there.
Yeah.
And yet, like it's what you said, you just got to keep going.
Well, for me, it was a big loss. Could I have done something differently?
Yeah.
You just live with those. You don't know how to, it's definitely doubt every day.
Sure. Well, and I hate to acknowledge that anything that happens with any repetition can become normal, but did that ever really help you prepare for any subsequent death that you had to contend with over there?
It's helped me in the way of being able to bury it and move on. Like looking back now, I've through all the therapy and all the stuff that I've gone through, I come to the realization that I don't let anybody in because of that. I keep them at a one arm's distance, not only for them but for me. Like I don't let anybody in truly.
Right.
Friends wise.
Yeah.
Because we had 14 guys that died within the first 4 months.
I am out here alone, 'cause there's nobody left. I need someone to talk to, get this pain on my chest. All the bad things I've done and the people I've hurt, wanna take that part of me and leave it in the dirt. Won't you save, 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 save me? Won't you save, 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 save me? Won't you save, 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 save me? Oh,
Travis would spend another 5 months on the battlefield, still doing what he was sent to do, while also still trying to contend with the loss of so many friends. Eventually, his unit was replaced by another. Now riddled with injuries, the physical demands of being a soldier were becoming too much for Travis to deal with. And though he re-enlisted with hopes of returning to combat, his body simply couldn't take any more. Can you talk a little bit about some of those injuries?
Yeah, so I have 3 good discs in the middle of my back. Those are the only good discs. The rest are either compressed or expanded, and that's from IEDs. So my injuries, basically, they were just like, you're unfit or you're a liability to your Marines next to you. And at the time, I was pissed.
Oh, sure.
I didn't feel like I wasn't done. There's Marines that had legs missing and they were still active, and so I was frustrated, and I was really like, really, you guys are gonna kick me out? I'll do an office job. I just want to stay in. So it was heartbreaking for me.
Yeah,
leaving the Marines.
Well, especially since you've already said that. I mean, you were quite literally ready to give your life for the Marines, whether that was giving it up in battle or giving it in service for decades. I can only imagine the frustration. Then if we could go just past that, what did re-entry to civilian life look like? I mean, was it a struggle, and what did you do to try to, meld into something normal?
Well, when I got out, I was lucky. My parents had their own business, so I was able to jump right in there. However, I was taking oxys. I had morphine patches. I had all these drugs that they were giving to me left and right, and I was taking like candy, and I was still drinking and doing all that. So, I remember a couple times where I would just do dumb stuff like take 6 oxys and then go drive to my friend's house and then have some beers and more oxys and then drive home.
Wow.
So, for me, it was a struggle of, one, I didn't know at the time the resources, where to go. The VA wasn't, the VA's the VA. They're just there to put a Band-Aid on it and let you go. Here's some more pills. At one point I was at 43 pills a day.
Wow. Well, you said that your best friend led you to Christ. Where was your faith in battle? Where was your faith after, and I realize that that's probably a big, broad question, but where was God in all of this for you?
For me, I struggled with the fact that, one, God took my best friend, the one who's probably besides Tabitha, he's probably the biggest influence that had on me. And to take that part and then take 13 others right back to back to back.
Yeah.
It was devastating. So I struggled. I struggled in the fact, like, if you're almighty, why are you allowing this? I kept on asking, like, why? And, I never got any answers. The chaplains would in the military, they just try to get you ready for the next mission. So they try to ease that stress for you to go. So, I wasn't getting any answers that way. I stopped reading the Bible altogether. Just because there was so much evil in, what I did and what I saw. And it was hard for me to wrap my brain around the goodness of him.
Yeah.
Through that time. When Tabitha said, hey, when we first started hanging out, she's like, hey, you want to go to church? I'm like, man, that place is going to burn down as soon as I walk in. And that's truly how I felt. For everything that I've done, I truly felt I could not go back to that place where I was. I couldn't allow God back into my heart and be able to go, all right, you're good.
Sure.
Because, I still struggle. For me, it's okay to ask why.
Yeah.
When I'm having a rough day and I'm still like, hey, why did you do this? And I still don't have answers. And I think that's the part that's frustrating for a lot of us is we don't have the answers and we don't get closure. I was struggling. One day I was like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. There's only been 2 times in my life that I've been that low. And I literally had the gun to my head when I was in my parents' bedroom. That way I could be found. I've always both scenarios I wanted to be found. I didn't want anybody to worry where I was. So I literally said, God, if you're real, you better times down. And I remember clear as day, he just said, not your time yet. Wait. And it was like loud. I've never had that before. So I put the gun down, like I lowered my hand and the gun went off. So I had a defective trigger. Wow. Which I didn't even know. It went off right by my foot. So that led me to go. I believe that led me to go, all right, let's go. For me at that time, I wasn't processed. I didn't have time to process it. I went from the Marines to work. I didn't process anything until in the last 4 years. So, I was able to bury a lot of stuff for a long time. Yeah. But yeah, it creeped up. You can only bury it for so long before it starts planting something else.
Next time on the Nook, we will meet Tabitha, the woman who would become Travis's wife. What started off as friendship turned serious in a very short amount of time.
Because I got to know him as a friend first and got to see his heart and the things that he valued and cared about and loved, the love for his country, the love for his family. Those were qualities that were important to me.
Much the same way that Travis had completely committed himself to his time in the Marines, he went all in on this new relationship, even though he was still dealing with so much mental and physical pain from his past.
I knew that he was taking medication through the VA to manage his pain and things like that. And at that time, initially, I didn't think that was the link to the two, him being so happy and in a good mood, and the medication that he was taking to kind of numb the pain that he was feeling.
While marriage and family life offered some peace and stability, Travis still had so many internal battles to fight.
And so many times I feel like when we were struggling in the beginning and I didn't know how to help and I wasn't equipped in those moments and I didn't know how to communicate, that praying was all I could do.
September is National Suicide Prevention Month, and maybe the easy thing to do is give out the National Suicide Hotline number, which is 800-273-8255, and it's monitored 24 hours a day. I would also add that if you're having any kind of thoughts of hurting yourself or others, please talk to someone. Don't put it off another minute. It's a hard step, I get it, but please get some help. God loves you more than you can imagine, and He wants you to have life to the fullest. Thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you here next time for part 2 of this series in the Nook.
Won't you save, 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 save me? Won't you save, 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 save me? Won't you save, 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 save me? Oh, save me, save, save me.
The Nook Podcast is a production of Sozo Digital Media.